Hello to all. Over the last few weeks we've learned a lot. We've talked about the quadratic formula, quadratic equations, factoring, and a lot more. But there's one thing in all that we've learned. There's only one variable, x, that we've had to worry about. Well, today, all that is about to change. Let me introduce you to your new friend, y. Like I said in an earlier video, x and y are the most commonly used variables in basic algebra. And honestly, for the most part, these are the only two variables we're going to have to worry about for this class. At the very end, we'll have one more variable, but let's not worry so much about that right now. Now, what is y? And why do we care? Pun very much intended there, thank you very much. Y is a variable, almost like x. It's a number that we don't know the actual value of. There's one big difference with y though, and that is that usually y is dependent on x. In other words, as x changes, y changes likewise. Let me show you an example of what I mean. Take the equation y equals x squared. Y in this case is very dependent on what number we put in for x. One way to show this is by creating a table like so. Now this table should actually look very familiar. It's exactly like the input and output tables you did a couple years ago. Instead of inputs and outputs though, we have x and y. On the left is the input value for x that we put into the equation. And on the y side, there are the values we get for y. For example, if x is 2, we put in 2 for x in the equation. Doing that, we see that y therefore equals 2 squared, or 4. And you can do this pretty much forever. You can go as high of numbers as you want for x, and y will continue to change. The previous example is what's called an exponential equation, and is always increasing as x increases in the positive plane. But that's not always the case. Take a look at this equation, y equals negative 3x plus 2. In this equation, we see that as x increases, the value of y actually goes down. And so, like we said earlier, y is entirely dependent on x and what is happening to x. Let's do an example problem together to make sure you've gotten this down. Y equals negative 1 to the power of x. Now pause here and see if you can fill in the table yourself. Alright, either you paused and tried it or ignored me, but either way, let's get to it. As we fill in the table, it should come out to look like this. Something you might have noticed is that with this one, y is actually going up and down as x increases. How wacky is that? Well, that's really all with y this week. Next week, we'll be taking a look at using x and y to create a graph of a function. But until next time, keep on learning.